There are people in your life right now who cannot be trusted. They do not show you their true face. They do not scream their betrayal in public. Instead, they hide their danger behind charm, behind small acts of help, behind smiles that look innocent but carry a silent weapon. Carl Jung, the man who spent his entire life studying not only the human mind but the shadow inside it, warned us that the most dangerous people are not the loud destroyers. They are the quiet distortions. They are the ones who blend into your daily life, pretending to care while slowly dismantling you from within. They do not always shout. They do not always abuse. Sometimes they smile. Sometimes they make you laugh. That is what makes them dangerous. That is why you keep missing the signs. Jung made it his mission to remind us, people do not show you who they truly are. They show you what they think will work. They show you the version of themselves that gets your trust, your approval, your energy, and if you are not awake, you will give them all of it, your time, your love, even your safety to someone who was never safe to begin with. Jung exposed 6 psychological masks, 6 patterns of personality that appear harmless at first but, left unchecked, quietly destroy you. They are the chronic victim, the charming mirror, the passive-aggressive enabler, the secret competitor, the spiritual narcissist, and the empathic controller. Each one is subtle, each one looks innocent, each one hides a shadow. And if you cannot see through the mask, you will mistake their weakness for need, their flattery for care, their advice for wisdom. So let us begin with the first mask, the first warning sign Jung left for us, the chronic victim. This is the person who never accepts responsibility. Every tragedy in their life is someone else's fault. Every mistake has been caused by another. They are always attacked, always misunderstood, always broken. At first, you feel compassion. You want to help. You want to heal them. Your empathy is pulled into their story like a rope tied around your chest. But Jung saw the truth. People who live permanently as victims are not helpless, they are manipulative. Because if you are always the victim, you never need to change. You never need to face your own shadow. You never need to confront the truth about yourself. The chronic victim does not want healing. They want control. Their suffering becomes their weapon. Their pain becomes the chain they wrap around you. They guilt-trip you. They twist reality until you doubt yourself. They make your kindness into an obligation, and soon, you are not helping them, you are carrying them. And the cruelest part, they do not want to get better. To heal would be to lose the only power they have, your pity. Jung warned us, when someone is always a victim, it is often because they have fused with their shadow. They thrive on manipulation under the disguise of helplessness. And if you stay too close, you will begin to feel guilty for not being broken yourself. This is the first danger, the first mask, the victim who hides control behind their pain. Now we move to the second mask, the second shadow that Carl Jung exposed, the charming mirror. This is the person who seems to understand you completely. They laugh at your jokes, they admire your dreams, they validate your insecurities, they reflect back to you exactly what you want to see. At first, it feels like a miracle. You believe you have found a supporter, a friend, maybe even a soulmate. But slowly, the truth begins to reveal itself. You do not actually know who they are, because they are not showing you anything real. They are only showing you your reflection. Jung called this the persona trap. When a person becomes too identified with their mask, the mask itself replaces the self. The charming mirror is dangerous because they seem safe. They adapt to you perfectly. They mimic your values. They echo your emotions. But behind the performance, there is nothing. No substance, no consistency, no rooted self. They are not loyal to you. They are loyal to your approval. And when that approval fades, when you stop feeding them with admiration, they disappear, or worse, they turn against you. You never actually met them. You met your own image reflected back through their performance. Trusting them is like shaking hands with smoke. You walk away with nothing solid, only the illusion of connection. Jung warned us that the danger here is subtle. You think you are close to someone. You think you share something deep. But in truth, you are only staring at a mirror. And a mirror cannot love you. A mirror cannot stand by you. A mirror only exists to reflect back what you already carry inside. The charming mirror does not betray you loudly. They betray you silently, by never being real to begin with. And when you finally see through it, you realize you invested not in a person, but in a mask. The third mask is more subtle, more deceptive, and therefore far more dangerous if you do not recognize it. Carl Jung called it the hidden shadow of the helper. We know it today as the passive-aggressive enabler. At first, this person does not look threatening. They smile when you share your ideas. They nod when you talk about your dreams. They seem to support you, to give you space. But watch closely. Listen carefully, because the danger of this mask is not in what they say directly, but in what they suggest indirectly. They will not openly criticize you. They will not argue with you face to face. Instead, they let your words stand in the air and then place a tiny seed of doubt inside them. If you tell them, "I want to start a business," they might reply, "That is ambitious. I just do not want you to be disappointed." If you say, "I am going to travel the world," they might answer, "You are so brave. I would never risk failing like that." It sounds supportive. It sounds gentle, but it is not. It is poison wrapped in soft words. Jung explained that this pattern hides beneath the role of the helper. These people pretend to empower you, but what they are really doing is eroding your confidence one suggestion at a time. They present fear as logic. They present judgment as maturity. They present doubt as concern. And because it looks harmless, you accept it. Slowly, without noticing, you begin to internalize their doubts as your own. Their voice becomes your inner voice. Their hesitation becomes your hesitation. You start to believe you are not ready, not strong enough, not wise enough. But you are not hearing your truth. You are hearing theirs. Why do they do this? Jung believed the answer is rooted in their fear of being left behind. If you succeed without them, if you rise above the limits they live inside, they lose their grip, they lose their relevance. And for them, that is unbearable. So they cut your wings before you can take flight. They disguise it as protection. They call it care. But it is sabotage. The passive-aggressive enabler survives by keeping you small. They want you to believe they are on your side. But in truth, they are quietly making sure you never step beyond the world they are comfortable with. Think of how this feels in your body. When you speak about your dreams with such a person, you feel a subtle weight pressing down. You feel excitement drain into anxiety. You walk away doubting yourself, even though 5 minutes earlier you were filled with hope. That shift is not natural. It is engineered. Jung warned us that this shadow type is dangerous because it disguises itself as kindness. You will not see it unless you learn to hear what is not being said. The danger is in the tone, in the suggestion, in the shadow cast by the smile. Imagine standing at the edge of a cliff, ready to leap into the unknown, to grow, to change. The passive-aggressive enabler will not shove you backwards. They will whisper, "What if you fall?" And in that whisper, your leap is stolen. And if you stay near them too long, you begin to self-censor. You stop sharing your dreams because you know they will only water them down. You stop trusting your own power because they have trained you to fear it. You begin to live within their cage, thinking it is your own. Carl Jung believed that the way out of this trap is radical awareness. He urged us to examine not only the words people use, but the effects those words have on our energy. If after speaking to someone you always feel smaller, weaker, or less certain, you are not being supported, you are being drained. The passive-aggressive enabler will never admit what they are doing. They may not even be conscious of it themselves. But the effect is clear. They keep you dependent. They keep you doubting. They keep you in a state of half-light, never fully stepping into your own strength. And the longer you stay entangled with this mask, the more you forget that the doubt was never yours to begin with. It was theirs. It was their shadow, projected onto you, disguised as love. Jung's warning is sharp and simple. Never confuse quiet sabotage for care. Real care empowers you. Real support makes you bigger, not smaller. Real love celebrates your wings instead of trimming them. So ask yourself, who in your life leaves you feeling heavier after every conversation? Who smiles when you succeed, but then plants a question in your heart that was never there before? Who makes you hesitate, not with force, but with suggestion? That is the passive-aggressive enabler, the friend who is not really a friend, the supporter who is not truly supportive, the one who wants you to believe they stand beside you, while secretly making sure you never outgrow them. And here lies the deepest danger. If you fail, they will not mourn. They will sigh and say, "I was afraid this might happen. I just wanted to protect you." Their words will sound gentle, but inside them is relief. Relief that you stayed small. Relief that you proved them right. Jung wanted us to know this pattern so we could see it for what it is. Not protection, but control. Not care, but fear. Not support, but sabotage disguised in whispers. The mask of the enabler is not easy to see because it does not shout. It whispers, and that is why it destroys so quietly. Now we face the fourth mask that Carl Jung warned us about, the secret competitor. Unlike the obvious rival who declares battle openly, this person hides their competition behind smiles, applause, and false praise. They are not competing with the world, they are competing with you. At first, they seem like a friend. They cheer when you share your good news. They applaud when you succeed. They tell you they are proud of you. But if you listen carefully, if you watch closely, you will see the fracture underneath. Their praise is not pure, their joy is not real, because every time you rise, they feel a shadow inside themselves deepen, and instead of confronting their own feelings of inadequacy, they project it onto you in secret. Jung believed that this type is driven by unconscious inferiority. It is not that they hate you, it is that your success reflects back to them their own failures, their own limits, their own unfinished dreams. They do not resent you directly, they resent what you awaken inside of them. So what do? They play the role of ally, but behind the mask they are always measuring, always comparing. If you share an achievement, they share a story of theirs just slightly bigger, slightly more impressive. If you have a breakthrough, they nod but then shift the attention back to themselves. If you receive recognition, they find a way to minimize it with a comment that seems innocent but cuts deep. It may sound like this: "That is amazing. I actually had a similar experience, except mine was," or "I am so glad you succeeded. I knew you could do it, but it reminded me of the time I..." Notice how the spotlight is quietly pulled away from you. It always circles back to them. You feel it, even if you do not speak it. You sense the tension in their smile. You notice the way their eyes change when the attention is not theirs. You recognize the silence that follows your victories. You sense that their applause is hollow. Jung warned us never to ignore that feeling, because if you pour trust into such a person, you are giving your heart to someone who secretly sees you as a rival. And the danger of a hidden competitor is not only in what they do, it is in how you start to feel around them. When you are with them, you begin to shrink your light, to hold back your joy, to soften your victories because you do not want to trigger their resentment. You edit yourself in their presence, thinking it is kindness, but in reality, you are protecting their fragile ego. And here lies the trap. While you are dimming yourself for their comfort, they are feeding on your hesitation. They are keeping score silently, building their identity against yours. And if you fail, if you stumble, if you fall, they will not grieve for you. They will feel relief. They may not say it directly, but you will hear it in their words. "I was worried this might happen. I tried to warn you." It will sound like care, but it will be soaked in satisfaction, because in your failure, their shadow feels lighter. For a moment, they are free of the comparison that torments them. This is why Jung's warning was so sharp. Never trust someone who cannot clap when it is not their turn to win. A real friend celebrates you, even when they have nothing themselves. A real ally can stand in your light without shrinking. A real partner in life is not threatened by your wings, but inspired by them. The secret competitor is not that. They want to stay close enough to imitate you, to steal your ideas, to copy your path, but never close enough to let you truly rise. They will watch your moves carefully, not to celebrate, but to mirror. They will echo your thoughts as if they were their own. They will absorb your inspiration and repackage it, pretending it was born inside them. Think about what this does to your spirit. Over time, you begin to feel drained. You begin to wonder why the friendship feels heavier with each success. You begin to sense that your joy is unsafe in their presence. That is not friendship. That is silent competition wearing the mask of love. Jung understood that this type of person is not malicious in the way we often think of enemies. They are not openly hostile. They are not loud about their resentment. Instead, they are haunted by their own shadow, the unacknowledged belief that they are not enough. And because they cannot face it directly, they try to balance it by competing with those they admire. But admiration and competition cannot exist together in purity. The more they admire you, the more they need to secretly outshine you. The more they compete, the less they can genuinely love. And that duality destroys trust. The tragedy of trusting a secret competitor is that you often discover the truth only when it is too late. You realize their support was conditional. You see that their loyalty was built on being equal or above, never below. And when you needed them most, when your life demanded true solidarity, they were absent, or worse, they were quietly glad that your light dimmed. So how do you protect yourself? Jung believed the answer was not paranoia, but clarity. Pay attention to how people respond when you shine. Do they smile fully, or do they tighten? Do they add to your joy, or do they redirect it? Do they amplify your success, or do they quietly compete for the spotlight? True friends rise with you, false ones resent you silently. And here is the most dangerous part. Sometimes, you will keep these secret competitors close because a part of you is still afraid of shining fully. Jung would say that your tolerance of such people is not random. It is a reflection of your own shadow. If you keep companions who resent your success, it may be because you are still uncomfortable owning it yourself. So the deeper lesson is not only about who to avoid, but about what inside you still allows their presence. When you embrace your own right to succeed, to shine, to expand, you no longer keep competitors in your circle. You no longer shrink to make them comfortable. You no longer explain your victories or apologize for your light. Carl Jung's reminder is as relevant today as it was in his time. Beware of those who smile at your face but compete in your shadow. Their mask is fragile, but their effect on you can be lasting. If you do not recognize them, you may spend years believing you are loved, when in truth, you were only tolerated, compared, and quietly resented. And the cost of that illusion is heavy. It is the weight of dimming your soul for someone who never wanted you to be fully alive in the first place. That is the danger of the fourth mask, the danger of the hidden competitor. The fifth mask is perhaps the most seductive of them all. Carl Jung called it the split psyche of the so-called wise one. Today, we know it as the spiritual narcissist, the manipulative teacher, the enlightened voice who hides a hunger for power beneath the language of peace. At first encounter, this person feels different from the others. They do not shout, they do not complain, they do not compete. Instead, they carry themselves with calm. They speak softly, slowly, as if their words carry ancient wisdom. They quote philosophers. They reference shadow work, meditation, healing, and alignment. They appear grounded, mature, above conflict. To the untrained eye, they seem like the safest person you could ever trust. But Jung's warning was clear. This mask is built from ego disguised as transcendence. The danger lies in the performance. The spiritual narcissist is not interested in growth. They are interested in being seen as superior. They are attached not to truth but to image. They are addicted to the identity of being the teacher, the healer, the guide. And once you step into their orbit, you will begin to feel the invisible strings they pull. Notice how they respond when you challenge them. You might express frustration. You might ask a hard question. You might reveal that something they said wounded you. A normal person would admit fault, apologize, or at least reflect. But the spiritual narcissist never lowers themselves to that level. Instead, they shift the frame. They say things like, "That sounds like a trigger you have not healed yet," or "I am just holding space. Perhaps this is your projection," or "You are still reacting. You have inner work to do." Do you see what happens? In a single move, the conflict disappears not because it is resolved, but because it has been reframed as your flaw. You cannot win an argument with them because they will never admit to one. You cannot expose their control because they have already declared themselves above ego. And each time you push back, you leave feeling smaller, less stable, more in need of their guidance. That is the trap. Jung wrote that this is not true enlightenment. This is ego wearing robes. It is not the death of the ego. It is its resurrection, painted over with crystals and candles. The shadow has not been integrated. It has been disguised. And the disguise is powerful because it appeals to our deepest longings, the longing for guidance, for wisdom, for clarity in a world of chaos. Think of how dangerous this becomes over time. The more you trust their voice, the more you doubt your own. The more you depend on their calmness, the more you feel unstable without it. The more you believe in their superiority, the more you give away your authority. Slowly, without realizing it, you hand them the keys to your self-worth. The spiritual narcissist thrives on this. They want students, not equals. They want followers, not partners. They want to sit above you, untouchable, not because they are pure, but because they have built a system where any attempt to question them is labeled as immaturity in you. Imagine standing in their presence. You share an idea, and they nod as if it is a child's thought. You express a wound, and they smile knowingly, reminding you that you still have much work to do. At first it feels like guidance, but after months, perhaps years, you realize it is not guidance at all. It is control through invalidation. This is what Jung feared most, that people who never integrated their own shadow would build spiritual identities to cover it. They would bury their ego under concepts, but never dissolve it. They would speak of compassion but act with quiet superiority. They would claim to honor your journey but secretly make sure you always needed theirs. And here is the cruel truth. The more conscious you try to become, the deeper the trap becomes. Because the spiritual narcissist is skilled at turning every reaction you have into evidence of your lack of evolution. If you cry, they call it reactivity. If you argue, they call it projection. If you doubt them, they call it resistance. No matter what you do, you are always the one who is still unhealed. And they are always the enlightened one, calmly reminding you of your flaws. How do you break free? Jung believed the answer is not to reject wisdom, but to discern its source. True wisdom empowers you to stand on your own. False wisdom makes you dependent. True teachers celebrate when you no longer need them. False teachers panic when you grow beyond them. Real guidance strengthens your voice. Manipulative guidance silences it. Ask yourself, when you leave a conversation with such a person, do you feel more whole or more broken? Do you feel stronger or smaller? Do you feel empowered or confused? That is the measure. The spiritual narcissist is perhaps the most difficult mask to expose because they appear to offer the very thing we crave most: clarity, peace, healing. They do not attack your shadow directly. They claim to help you meet it, but in reality, they bind you to theirs. Jung's final warning about this type is brutal. They do not want you healed. They want you dependent. They do not want you whole. They want you searching, always one step behind them. They do not want equals. They want disciples. And unless you wake up, you will spend years mistaking their performance for depth, their superiority for wisdom, their control for guidance. That is the fifth mask, the manipulative wise one, the spiritual narcissist who feeds not on truth, but on your surrender. The sixth and final mask that Carl Jung exposed is the most disarming of all because it looks like love. It looks like care. It looks like the one thing we crave most: empathy. But behind that tenderness is control. This is the empathic controller, the person who uses sensitivity not as connection, but as power. At first, being with them feels like a gift. They notice your moods without you saying a word. They pick up on the tension in your body. They sense your unspoken pain. They cry easily, and their tears convince you that they feel everything you feel. You believe you have found someone who truly sees you, who truly understands. For a time, it feels like intimacy, like the closeness you always wanted. But Jung's warning was clear. This kind of empathy can quickly become a cage. Why? Because the empathic controller is not simply sensitive, they are unstable. They have never learned to hold their own inner chaos. So instead, they demand that others hold it for them. And once you enter their orbit, you begin to adapt your every move to protect their emotions. You speak carefully so you do not upset them. You soften your tone so you do not disturb them. You avoid confrontation because they tell you that your anger affects their energy. Without realizing it, you are no longer living freely. You are managing them. At first, you do this out of love. You do not want to hurt them. But soon, it becomes routine. Their pain becomes your responsibility. Their moods become your burden. Their storms become your prison. And slowly, without knowing, your own self-expression begins to die. Jung explained that projection is at the heart of this mask. The empathic controller projects their unhealed chaos outward. Instead of owning it, they insist that you adjust to it. They make their inner instability your fault. If they collapse emotionally, they say it is because you failed them. If they spiral into despair, they say it is because you were cold. If they rage quietly through tears, they say it is because you abandoned them. And each time, you believe it, because how could someone so sensitive, so wounded, be manipulative? But that is exactly the trap. They weaponize sensitivity. They use tears as chains. They use fragility as authority. And the more you protect them, the smaller you become. Think about what happens to your own emotions in this relationship. When you are angry, you swallow it. When you are frustrated, you hide it. When you are tired, you pretend you are fine. Because you know that any ripple in your energy will set them off. So you regulate yourself constantly, while they never regulate at all. This imbalance is not love, it is submission. It is psychological imprisonment disguised as care. And yet, the empathic controller will never admit to control. They will say, "I just feel too much." They will claim, "I am too open, too pure, too vulnerable." But Jung saw through this performance. He warned that many people who declare themselves highly sensitive are not living in empathy, they are living in chaos. And instead of learning to master it, they force the world to carry it. Imagine this over years. You begin to lose yourself entirely. Your identity bends around theirs. Your choices shrink to accommodate their storms. You no longer ask, "What do I want?" You ask, "What will keep them calm?" That is the ultimate theft. They do not just take your time or your trust, they take your freedom to be. Jung urged us to recognize the signs early. He said that true empathy does not demand submission. True sensitivity does not erase boundaries. Real love does not make you smaller to keep someone else stable. If you find yourself constantly shrinking to avoid triggering another, you are not in love. You are in a system of control. And the cruelest part, they will never say they are dangerous. They will say they are broken. They will say they are fragile. They will say they need more compassion. And unless you are rooted deeply in yourself, you will believe them. You will think their storms are your fault. You will think their pain is your burden. You will think their chaos is your responsibility to fix. But it is not. It never was. Jung's advice here is stark. Walk away. Not with hate, not with revenge, simply with clarity. Because the empathic controller cannot be healed by you. Their sensitivity is not a gift they offer. It is a mask they use. And until they learn to face their own shadow, they will keep projecting it onto anyone who dares to love them. The deeper danger is this. If you stay, you will begin to mistake chaos for depth. You will begin to believe that suffering is intimacy. You will begin to equate control with closeness, and by the time you realize the truth, your own identity may already be woven into their storms, your own voice silenced beneath their tears. Jung wanted us to see this, not to harden us, but to free us. He did not believe sensitivity was evil. He believed unintegrated sensitivity was dangerous, because when empathy becomes control, it stops being love. It becomes domination disguised as care. So the final mask is the softest, but also the deadliest, because it does not wound you with anger. It wounds you with love that is not real. It does not enslave you with force. It enslaves you with tears. And if you do not see through it, you will give away your freedom, your truth, and your soul to someone who never learned to carry their own. This is why Jung's final message is so urgent. He reminded us that the only protection is self-awareness. To see through the smile, to hear what is not being said, to trust your gut when the energy shifts, to walk away before the mask consumes you. Because once you see the empathic controller for what they are, you cannot unsee it. And that clarity is your freedom. Now that we have unmasked all 6 types, Carl Jung's final message comes into focus. He did not expose these people so that we could live in fear, avoiding everyone around us. He exposed them so that we could learn to see more deeply beyond the mask, beyond the performance, beyond the charm, and the tears to the shadow that fuels it all. Because here is the truth. These people exist not because they are evil, but because they have never met their own shadow. Think of it. The chronic victim never faced the part of themselves that manipulates through guilt, so they project it outward and make you carry it. The charming mirror never confronted their own emptiness, so they become whoever you need, hiding the absence of a true self. The passive-aggressive enabler never admitted their fear of being left behind, so they keep you small under the disguise of concern. The secret competitor never owned their feelings of inadequacy, so they measure themselves against you in silence. The spiritual narcissist never dissolved their ego, so they dressed it in the language of light and pretended it was transcendence. And the empathic controller never learned to hold their own storms, so they forced others to become their emotional anchors. They are not rare. They are everywhere. They work beside you. They sit across from you at dinner. They share your bed. They call themselves your friends. And the more unconscious you are, the more power they have. Because Jung believed that unconsciousness attracts unconsciousness. If you do not integrate your own shadow, you will keep tolerating theirs. This is why you may have noticed a pattern in your own life. Perhaps you keep meeting manipulators. Perhaps you keep attracting victims. Perhaps you always find yourself entangled with people who praise you one day and betray you the next. You might think it is bad luck. You might think you are cursed. But Jung's answer was different. He said, "You are not cursed. You are mirrored." Let that sink in. You attract what you have not integrated. If you always draw in people who drain you, there is a part of you that is afraid to stand firm. If you always fall for charm, there is a part of you still hungry for external validation. If you always rescue victims, there is a part of you that only feels valuable when you are needed. These unconscious pieces of yourself create the cracks through which toxic people enter. That is why Jung taught that the real work is not simply cutting people off, it is looking within. Because if you remove one manipulator without integrating your own shadow, another will appear. Different face, same pattern. And you will wonder why life keeps repeating itself. The answer is simple. Life will repeat the lesson until you learn it. So how do we break free? Jung offered us 4 steps. The first is to audit your circle. Ask yourself, who drains me? Who confuses me? Who do I constantly explain myself to? If someone always needs more context just to treat you with respect, they are not confused, they are avoiding accountability. Jung said that withdrawal can be one of the most powerful acts of consciousness. Not withdrawal out of hate, but withdrawal out of self-respect. The act of walking away silently says, I will no longer abandon myself to keep your peace. The second step is to let your shadow speak. Stop trying to be endlessly perfect, endlessly patient, endlessly agreeable. Let yourself get angry. Let yourself say no. Let yourself call out manipulation when you feel it. Jung said, one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. That means that your shadow, the part of you that knows when you are being lied to, the part that refuses to be gaslit into silence, is not your enemy, it is your protector. The third step is to stop explaining. The people who deserve your boundaries will never need you to justify them. They will feel your no and respect it. The ones who are toxic will always demand more explanation, more guilt, more performance. Let them. Jung insisted that our job is not to convince unconscious people of our truth, but to live it so fully that their confusion can no longer slow us down. The fourth step is to trust what you felt the first time. Most people are not actually confused about who they can trust. They simply ignore the small voice inside that whispers, something feels wrong here. Jung reminded us that the subconscious mind picks up patterns long before the conscious mind does. That hesitation you feel is not paranoia, it is awareness, and the more you honor it, the more you protect yourself. But perhaps Jung's most important warning was this: not everyone is learning. Some people have been the same for 10 years, for 20 years, for their entire lives. They are not evolving, they are not integrating their shadow. They are simply finding new words, new masks, new disguises to hide the same old patterns. And if you keep waiting for them to change, you will waste your life in their storm. The hard truth is this: not everyone deserves access to you. Not everyone is safe. Not everyone is capable of love. Not because they are born without it, but because they have buried themselves so deeply in denial that they cannot give what they never gave themselves. And no matter how much you pour into them, it will never be enough. Jung did not want us to become cold. He wanted us to become whole. And wholeness means clarity. It means seeing the masks for what they are. It means no longer mistaking pity for love, charm for loyalty, advice for wisdom, tears for truth. It means standing so firmly in your own alignment that no manipulator can bend you, no narcissist can fool you, no competitor can rattle you. This is what it means to integrate your shadow, to reclaim the parts of you that were silenced, to remember that your anger has a place, your intuition has a voice. Your boundaries are not cruelty, they are survival. When you stop abandoning yourself, you stop tolerating those who would abandon you. So here is the final word. The world will always contain masks. You cannot change that. What you can change is the way you respond. You can live asleep, bending to every manipulator who smiles at you, or you can wake up. You can begin the work. Jung devoted his life to the work of becoming awake, whole, and impossible to trick. Because the moment you integrate your shadow, the game ends. The masks no longer work on you. The dangerous ones pass you by. And without ever raising your voice, without ever proving your worth, you become the one thing they cannot touch, a human being who knows their own depth and refuses to hand it away. Carl Jung did not spend his life warning us so that we would fear every face we meet. His purpose was sharper, deeper, more liberating. He wanted us to stop fearing our own knowing, because when you silence your instincts, when you repress your anger, when you bury your truth, you become easy to manipulate. But when you reclaim your shadow, when you let it speak, You are no longer the prey of those who live unconsciously. Think of the 6 masks again. The victim who hides control behind their pain. The mirror who shows you only your reflection. The enabler who clips your wings while calling it care. The competitor who claps with one hand while holding a knife in the other. The wise one who disguises ego as enlightenment. The empath who binds you with tears instead of chains. They will always exist, but they cannot reach the person who stands whole. Because when you are whole, pity does not trap you, flattery does not blind you, doubt does not erode you, competition does not shake you, false wisdom does not silence you, and tears do not enslave you. You see them all for what they are, fragments of shadow pretending to be love. The real war was never with them. It was with your own reflection, with the parts of yourself you left unguarded, with the pieces you believed were too dark to carry. Jung's truth remains timeless. One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. That is your task, to awaken, not into perfection, but into wholeness. So the next time someone smiles too easily, doubts you too softly, praises you too loudly, or cries too often, pause, look closer, ask yourself, am I seeing their truth, or am I staring at a mask? And then, listen not with your ears but with your gut, because your instincts already know. They always knew. This is the path of shadow work, to see the world clearly, to stand in your truth fiercely, to become, in Jung's words, awake, whole, and impossible to trick.